I'm delighted to be back with Konstantin in part of our twice monthly conversations. There is so much going on. We barely even manage to cover the topics that are being thrown up day by day, hour by hour. For most of you will know, for those who don't, Konstantin is one of the most respected voices on YouTube about what is happening in Russia. He is a well-known YouTuber whose channel Inside Russia comments insightfully on Russia's descent into authoritarianism. Many of you will also know his story. He's no longer in Russia, like anybody else who criticizes the Russian regime, the Kremlin. It is, of course, not safe for him to be in Russia anymore. Before we jump in, thank you to everybody who has subscribed to the channel. If you're not, please do make sure you don't miss out on any of our fantastic guests. And a huge thank you to everyone who has helped support our various campaigns, including buying trucks to help send to the front, help evacuated Ukrainian servicemen. That campaign was fantastic, successful in December. We're doing it all over again, so please do check out the link in the description of the video. And thank you, of course, to everyone as well who has contributed to either Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, and done the same for Konstantin. It's incredibly important that the videos, the work he does, can continue. And of course, many of you will know that we're trying to create a documentary film to compete with Russian propaganda in film festivals. That is now going ahead. The first leg of that filming is taking place already this week. And of course, we will keep you up to date with all the news about that. Konstantin, I'm delighted to welcome you back, despite the fact you are not 100%. So we'll put that out there for the audience. Thank you so much for doing this nonetheless.
Jonathan, thank you for having me. I enjoy our monthly or twice a month conversations a lot, and it's always a pleasure to share my opinion with you, with people, with viewers. And it's also very intellectually pleasing to speak with you. So thank you so very much for having me.
Well, that feeling is absolutely reciprocal. And, you know, you are able to monitor a huge range of sources and you're able to, I think, understand which voices are more consistently accurate, who have better, let's say, professional standards and how they compile information. I think it's an essential source, both for myself and also for, let's say, Western audiences to really tune into what you have to say, because a lot of what you're listening to is not covered by mainstream Western media. Every day, Trump is spewing out, words that create headlines. And it seems in the last couple of months, we've lost sight of some of the things that were starting to gain traction in the media. And in particular, that is Russia's economic problems. I mean, they continue apace despite, the feeling that Trump may want to help Putin, draw back from the edge, from economic abyss. What is actually going on? Because there's some extraordinary stories that are sort of bubbling up, but not really getting much attention in the media.
Jonathan, there is so much going on right now in Russia, and you nailed it. There have been lots of talks inside and outside Russia of how the peace will come soon, how Russia will sign a peace treaty or ceasefire with the USA, with Ukraine, how the USA is brokering the peace deal, and all these talks for 2 months now. Okay, and the result is zilch. Hasn't been anything. Okay. At the same time, Russian economy hasn't changed much. There was an impact on the markets, but a short-lived impact. Basically, when the first talks started happening about possible ceasefire, and back 7 weeks ago was not clear of what was going on. Hey, no one knew. Perhaps there would be a ceasefire soon. Okay, who knew? Was Trump serious? Putin serious? Okay, now we know. But back then, we not too many people. Well, no one knew. And the Russian markets reacted enthusiastically, and they started rallying. Okay, Russian ruble gained value. Stock of lots of Russian companies went up, soared. It's been 7 weeks and everything's been corrected. Russian ruble is losing value. Stock is back where it was before the negotiations started on February 12th. And now I think we all understand that this peace negotiations is just a talk. Okay. You can talk whatever you want, but you got to walk the walk. And Russia has certainly showed that it has no desire, no intention to sign a peace treaty or ceasefire. And the thing is, Russian economy, it's doing the same as it was doing before the negotiation started. And me and you, we've talked about it for 2.5 years now. My position, and I keep on standing on it, Russian economy is demising, it's dying. Okay, it's shrinking. I call it the economic tsunami, and it's happening. And now it's at the stage where cannot be sugar-coated any longer, and the officials actually aren't sugar-coating anymore because it doesn't make any sense. Okay, so it worked a year ago, but it's not working now. There are so many signs every day of the economic decline in Russia, and that hasn't changed. So the negotiations, all this back and forth, talking and meeting in Al Riyadh, it's just fluff talk. And we are at the reality. It's economics is a science, okay, and then there are no miracles happen there. So basically, that's answering your questions.
Definitely. And
Answering your question.
yeah, it really does. And of course, I've pointed out in many videos I've done recently that, peace does not mean peace to Vladimir Putin. In fact, he's escalated the violence, escalated the aggression, escalated the intensity, and in some ways, even the viciousness of what's going on. It seems to be entirely, I mean, I can't even find the words for it, but there's no military targets. I mean, he's lashing out, punishing civilians. There's a certain amount of, I would say, psychopathic behavior behind that while peace talks are going on. It's almost designed to humiliate Western powers. It's almost designed to say, look, we can do whatever we want. We can talk peace, and yet we can behave in this way, and there's nothing, absolutely nothing you can do about it. I mean, do you detect that as well? Do you detect that extraordinary sort of viciousness of psychology behind it?
Jonathan, we can talk, or anyone can talk anything about peace talks, Russia wanting peace, and so forth. But um, what you said is the reality. Putin promises peace, ceasefire, negotiating, throwing in requirements or desires. At the same time, he is hitting Ukraine the hardest. Okay. And this is exactly what he does. He sends a message saying, I don't care. I could care less about anything, anyone. No, no one can tell me what to do. I will play on my own terms. And I am the mighty Vladimir. Okay. Listen to me, world. I do as I please. That's the message.
It seems to me that he's lost, though. It seems to me that, of course, there's no real strategic impact to any of those strikes. They're cruel and vindictive, and they hurt individual civilians, but they're not really going to affect Ukraine's ability to counter its resistance. And it seems that he may believe he's won because he thinks that he can manipulate Trump into supporting him, that he can manipulate Trump into lifting sanctions. We'll talk about sanctions and gas and all this in a minute. But it still seems from some of his body language that he thinks he's winning. My interpretation is that he's actually losing. He just does not yet realize it yet.
He's winning tactically, but he's losing strategically. I should say. Okay. I think his biggest recent win, and we talked about it in our last meeting a couple of weeks ago, last talk, is that he finally has something to justify the war. He has something in his hand to show everyone in Russia, look, my people, I promised you and I delivered. And they talk, 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 but I do whatever I feel desired. Okay. That's a win. And a lot of Russians actually consider that a win. Um, this past Sunday, I looked at the latest ratings and the real ratings, not the kind they show on Russian TV, but the real stuff. And I discussed with one of the best experts in public polling in Russia, here in Tashkent, a good friend of mine. Public support of Putin has soared because people do feel like he's won. He's delivered. He's delivered on promises. He's delivered what he talked about it a long time ago. So that's the win. But strategically, in the long run, he is losing, and he's taking Russia along with him. I think still few people understand that Russia right now is going through destruction, complete destruction. There will be no Russia as we know it in the future. Okay, what Putin is doing right now is annihilating the country, its economy, the society, everything. He's turning Russia into a failed state. And to me, that is, of course, well, it's not even a loss, it's a tragedy. It's tragedy for Russians because their lives are getting canceled right now. But in the short term, yeah, he's winning.
And like Trumpy, I think he lives far more in the short term than we tend to acknowledge. So let's examine some of these details because, yes, it does seem that Trump is minded to try to help Putin re-establish the gas industry, the exports from the Siberian gas fields. There's even been this talk of American businessmen being involved in reconstituting Nordstream and forcing Ukraine and Europe to become the transit and indeed the end market for that gas. I mean, this seems absolutely wild, quite apart from the moral angle, which of course is despicable. But is this more hot air and gas actually coming from the US? Because this does not seem realistic. And even the Germans are saying they do not want this thing back in any shape or form. But even if that were to happen, is in some ways, is it already too late for certain segments of the Russian economy that are busy collapsing now? And even if gas fields were to be reconstituted, it would take 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. I mean, I'm not an expert in this. I don't know how long it would take, but it certainly wouldn't be an instant hit or an instant recovery for Putin's economy.
Certainly would not be an instant recovery, as if we look at the demise, hasn't been an instant demise. Okay, it's has taken 2.5 years to start this fever, economic fever that Russia is going through right now. And then the same thing, it's not going to take one day or 1 week or even 1 month to recover. And I think at this point, I think it's at the Russia is at the point of no return economically. Russia will fall. There's no question about that. And it might be reborn like Phoenix from the ashes, right? It might stay in the ashes for a long time. What's going to happen in the future? No one knows. Not one expert can forecast anything. Would be just guessing, okay? But what is certain is it'll fall down, okay? And then speaking of that gas deal, um, I've spoken to industry expert in Russia, and the general attitude towards information about this gas deal, an American company coming in and buying Nordstream pipeline, they're laughing. They're laughing. Um, they don't understand certainly this news did not come from the industry, but it came from different sources, from people who wanted to rally Russian markets a little bit. Perhaps from people who bought Russian stock when it was down, soared the markets with the news, uh, sparked it up, so to speak, sold when the stock was high, and now the stock is back down. It was, I don't even know what the news, I couldn't trace the source, the initial source of this news. Seems like all media have started reprinting this news all at the same time, as if someone placed the news deliberately, paid money for the news to be spread around. Nord Stream. Well, first of all, the Americans are extracting lots of natural gas, and Europe was and has been the sweetest piece of the pie, so to speak, the sweetest market. And Russia ruled that market. It usurped it, for decades, since the times of the USSR, since the 70s. I'll remind you, the Nord Stream, well, not Nord Stream, but Urengoy Pomare Uzhgorod, that gas pipeline going through Ukraine, it was built with help of Germans. In the program that no one remembers anymore, but I do, this program was called Pipes for Gas. Okay, and the Germans supplied pipes because the Soviet Union simply could not produce the pipes that were needed. Okay, and the Soviet Union paid with the natural gas. Okay, so Russian dominance of Europe in natural gas supply started back then in the 70s and the 80s. And Nord Stream, now, I don't know if you knew that or not, and I was incited by one of the industry experts. Nord Stream was actually not needed to be built. Okay, Nord Stream is not needed to be built. Okay, there's enough capacity. Urengoy, Pomare, Uzhgorod can pump so much more gas than it was pumping at peak times, and that's how people at Gazprom were stealing money. They would simply build pipelines that were not needed, and they would make money building them. That was the business of Gazprom.
Skim money off the
Yeah,
contract, the
of
construction
course, yes,
contract,
yes, yes, of
transition.
course.
Yeah.
So, and Europe and Americans were trying to supply their natural gas for, I don't know, since probably early 90s. And right before the start of the war, there was a huge fight. American, not just companies, but American administration. I believe it was, I think it was even before Donald Trump, 45, 44. So that's Barack Obama. They were making a claim that Russia is using natural gas as geopolitical weapon, and Europe should be aware of that. And then Russians were laughing that statement off, saying, "Hey, it's pure money. Our gas is cheap. Our gas is more convenient. We just have a pipeline." And that was a huge fight. And the thing is, don't forget, the Russians are the ones who turned natural gas off to Europe. That happened in August 2022. Putin was trying to force Europeans to give up financial aid and military aid to Europe, to Ukraine. But then the Nord Stream was bombed, and that's, the rest is history. But it was Russia who used natural gas as geopolitical weapon, and Americans were right in the first place. And then after the natural gas supply stopped to Europe, the Americans started supplying. Other countries, Kuwait, Norway started supplying gas, and Europe did not freeze to death, as Gazprom was hoping would happen. Okay, and then they said, "Okay, fine, we'll be fine without Russian natural gas." So right now, Americans are supplying gas to Europe. Imagine Donald Trump comes out and says, "Oh, you know what? I really want Russian natural gas to be back to Europe." At the expense of who? At the expense of American companies.
Makes no sense.
I
Makes no
don't, this
sense
is
at all.
impossible. They were trying to get in so hard for decades and they finally are in. And then Donald Trump comes in and says, "Oh, get back to the States, get back home. You know, we have Russian boys. They want to supply natural gas." Okay. So all industry experts in Russia are laughing. They're saying, "Where did that come from?" So that's not going to happen. It will not happen. And if you notice, the news appeared, it was reprinted by many sources, and that's it. Hasn't reappeared ever since. No one is talking about Russian pipeline being bought by American companies. Show me the names. What companies, what investors would like to step into Russia and buy the pipeline? Okay. No, there's no names.
It's more words. It's the
Just the
shock
Americans.
value, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
the
I
shock
like this.
headline
The
value.
Americans want to do that. Well,
Hmm.
there are 350 million of them. Just show me the exact Americans who want to do that. Let's speak to them. What they
It
have to say. So
it seems like
sorry, it
another
was a long answer,
informational.
but that's
Yeah.
that's as much as I know.
And at the same time, there's extraordinary other things going on, which, of course, and one wonders whether that story is there to sort of cover up what's really going on. One of those is this threat to nationalize people's savings and almost fast track back to the USSR. We have talked about this a couple of times, that it now seems there are concrete moves being made to essentially seize people's savings and even convert them into some sort of form of coupon as opposed to currency. It must be terrifying for individuals to lose the absolute control over their finances in that way. And another story you covered, which I think absolutely fascinating, is that Putin seems to be turning on some of the oligarchs as well, using threats, appropriations of businesses, potentially even arrests to start cannibalizing another portion of the economy. Could you tell us a little bit more about what you know about these two changes?
Certainly, both changes are in place. Except for I disagree with you. You said it must be terrifying for Russian people to understand that their savings might be appropriated. I disagree. It's terrifying to them. Oh, to be terrified, first of all, you have to have savings in the bank. Okay. And if you don't have any savings, you're not terrified. Most Russians don't have any savings in the bank. Those who started making more money because recently, because, for example, their family members have been, well, volunteered, signed up, signed military contracts, and went to fight in Ukraine. Yes, they cashed out, they got lots of money, and they receive money, but those people, they don't have any understanding of investing, okay, and they're just spending it all. They're going out, having nice meals. They're buying new television sets, cars, perhaps. They're trying to make up for what they were missing all their lives, like decent living. Okay, so most Russians don't have savings. That's number one. And number two, in order to be terrified, you have to be sober. Well, that's the problem in Russia with that. And you have to understand what's going on. You all have to understand what appropriation is. You have to have some kind of like logic and common sense. Also, there's a problem in Russia with that. So I don't think that many people are terrified. Okay, they are simply clueless, happy-go-lucky, whatever. It's not gonna touch us. That's what they think.
And when it does, they'll
But
find a way around it.
you are
Yeah.
absolutely right. If I were Russian inside Russia, and I had savings, I would be terrified because it is happening. Um, I believe last August, either July or August, we heard about it for the first time. See, Russian state never works fast. Okay, it never implements an unpopular decision. Instead, it starts slow and it works stepping stone strategy. Okay. Some call it boiling the frog. It starts throwing a little by little of information in the media so Russians um, eat it piece by piece for a long time, and then they get used to it. I remember one of the ministers suggested that would be nice to use all the money deposited in the bank accounts of Russian citizens in the commercial banks for, well, to develop the industries, 55 trillion rubles. Oh, would it be nice? That's when everyone started talking. But he didn't suggest anything, he didn't propose. He just kind of threw this idea up in the air to Putin. And they have been this, I call them insertions of ideas a few times. And now they are introducing a new thought. Okay. It's not, we're not going to expropriate your money, but we are going to freeze either all money in your accounts or partially your deposits partially. And we're not going to take it, but we will exchange it for an awesome financial investment tool, stock of companies that will be newly privatized. Well, again, privatized again. That the government owns them. It's going to privatize all the shares or partially sell shares, and will give this opportunity to Russian people to own some of Russia's best enterprises. You know, in other situations, they would not have this chance, but we're giving them. This is a favor we're doing to Russian people. Russian people should be thankful to us, okay? So I think it's getting warmer, okay? So the problem is, please forgive me, sore throat. The problem is that Russia is out of money. Again, I've been talking about it for 2.5 years.
But now it's
It
actually
has
happening.
lost.
I mean, now it really is coming down to
It's
the.
done.
Yeah.
There's no savings in the savings account anymore. Okay, it's done. They are selling less oil due to the sanctions, due to the difficulties in logistics, and they're selling oil at extremely low price because, first of all, Russia is sanctioned and they have to invent illegal schemes to sell it, and of course they discount buyers. And then now the global oil prices are falling, and that is really bad for Russia. Okay, Russia is not selling natural gas anywhere except for China, but at minuscule amounts. And Russia cannot borrow in the international markets. Obviously, it's banned, sanctioned, and it cannot borrow inside Russia because people simply have no money and there are no investors who are willing to. There are basically no investors left, period. There are very few, and those are super cautious. And certainly, Russian government is not to be trusted. So, Russian money has nowhere to go to get money. Russian government has nowhere to go to get money. The only possible option right now is to print. They have been printing, and the inflation is high. They can print more, but that's not a solution. Okay. And one of the last solutions is somehow to put government's greasy hand into the deposits of Russian people, one way or another. And I think that if nothing extraordinarily good happens soon for Russia, Russian state will act one way or another and somehow will get its hand onto Russia's people money.
And it seems there are.
That's
And that's happening, isn't it? Because you've got potentially some threats starting to emerge against certain oligarchs, and one can see that, I mean, we know how this system works. You have dirt on everybody. So when you actually come to arrest somebody or threaten somebody, it's not because they've done something criminal. It's because it's expedient to you at that point to use the information you already had on them. So everything is political in that sense. Could Putin get more money by turning on the oligarchs? We also see that there is starting to be the attempts to sell off portions of state assets to create this badly needed liquidity as well. And again, that smacks of desperation because it seemed to me that Putin's entire regime was all about rebuilding the state and taking control of the assets and resources of the state to be able to use them for the military. So the idea of selling those back off again to private investors, I mean, they wouldn't do this unless they were desperate. And they wouldn't go after the oligarchs unless they were desperate either, because that creates certain political risk potentially.
Jonathan, I say again and again that it's intellectually pleasing talking to you because you give me the points that a lot of people have forgotten about. And you're absolutely right. It's a very rare opinion that I hear. Actually, I haven't heard it from anyone but you now. We have to take a step back to 25, 20, well, 25 years ago, okay? Russian Soviet properties were privatized, sold, okay? And I think the state did a pretty good job. Yes, they did it much worse than, let's say, Poland or East Germany, but they did it, okay? And that was a win that they could somehow unfairly, but to do it still, nevertheless. And then when Vladimir Putin came back, he started consolidating assets in his hands, in the hands of the state. And with Yeltsin, the term was coined the family. Okay, when Putin started implementing his own ways to run the country, a new term was coined, the corporation. Putin started acting as corporation, um, uh, acquiring assets. And at first, they were acquiring assets in a very peaceful, very legitimate, and very honest way. You know, I'll just give you an example. Rostov on Don, the city where I'm from, right in the middle of the city, there's a huge part of the city fenced off, and that's helicopter factory. They used to produce Mi-8 helicopters, and then Ka-52, the black shark, I think it's called, something like that. So it was privatized. As a matter of fact, I was invited to work there back in 1994 to have internship.
Internship.
Uh,
That's it.
Internship. There
Internship,
you
yeah.
go. Yes, it was a private enterprise, and Vladimir Putin bought it back. Well, I'm saying the Russian state, but we know who the Russian state is. So he bought it back from the owner, and um, fair price was given. And the owner, as far as I remember, he just cashed in and left Russia. But then he got lots of money for his helicopter plant. And then there were hundreds and hundreds of other plants like that. And the result in 2022, Russian state owned um, most military, not just military, large enterprises. Okay. And Jonathan, that's a very convenient way because let's say the state owns majority of an enterprise, let's say helicopter factory. And then what happens is you place general director who controls money flow, who controls everything basically, and that's your man. And if a company incurs losses, you cover from federal budget. And if it incurs income, then income is gone someplace, and split or whatever. It's a very nice scheme, and that's what they were doing for a long time. Now the military-industrial complex is, of course, owned by the state. Sergei Chemezov, Putin's closest friend, is at helm of this corporation. He's not official owner of all factories, but he controls the holding company. Okay, and he is considered the decision maker, the one and only. And other enterprises like that too. It's just Russia is a large country and there are many companies in Russia, and some belong to people who are not in the system, who are not servants of Putin. For example, Mashkovich, the guy who owned the company called Rusagro, and he was arrested a couple days ago. Rusagro is a large company. It's one of Russia's best manufacturers of fertilizers and worth billions and billions of dollars. Mashkovich himself is worth $2.4 billion. He's in the list of Forbes 400, the global rich man list. Okay. Um, so at this point, a lot of people, I think, make mistake. They think that Vladimir Putin has started nationalizing, stealing, taking this, not stealing, but taking this, stealing really, enterprises from oligarchs so he can cash in and fill up the federal budget. Okay. I think that is a wrong view. Vladimir Putin, the harder the situation gets in Russia, the more threats to his power. His perfect scenario is everything is quiet. Economy is doing well. There's no war. He gets good approval ratings. And then that way he can rule forever. The more dire situation becomes, the more the boat of Russia is rocking. Okay. And I think right now the situation is pretty dire. Just look what's going on. His closest ally, Ramzan Kadyrov, is having a rift with Putin. He goes behind Putin's back and starts making deals with, the monarchs of Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and other countries behind Putin's back. And he's hiding the fact he's doing that. That's Chechnya. That's 75,000 well-armed fighters, well-trained, who answer to Kadyrov, not Putin. Kadyrov has assembled them, hired them, and he has been paying them. They belong to Kadyrov. 75,000. I mean, that's a formidable force. What if they move to Moscow tomorrow? Okay. So the situation is it's heating up. And Vladimir Putin simply redistributes riches, assets. He has a close circle of bodyguards, politicians, siloviki that he relies on, and he wants to make them more loyal. Therefore, he takes assets from some people, oligarchs, such Mashkovich, and rewards his needed people with his assets. Okay. So they depend on him more. They're loyal to him more. And basically, they will fight for him until death, because if he's out, all those assets will be taken back. They will lose it all. Okay. So I think this is the real purpose of what he started doing. The wealth redistribution to the new elites of Russia. And the new elites are Siloviki.
It's those who are going to be loyal insofar as he continues to pay them. But if he runs out of money, then this whole game ends. And these guys are not going to be loyal when the cash runs out, surely. Now, we've only got 2 minutes left. Your view here, because it's my view that Putin has already lost. He just doesn't realize it. And it will take time for things to continue to fall apart in a way that's beyond his control. But do you think that he is now in a position where he cannot actually have a ceasefire because the militarized economy he's created would simply implode? The illogical things he's created, the pressures he's created, the printing money, the dependency on war. It seems to me that all of these things would literally, catastrophically implode the minute warfare, I won't say it has to be exactly the war in Ukraine, but the minute he stops, running a militarized state, that's it. Game over.
I have never thought that Putin won globally and strategically. On the contrary, I think he lost the second he attacked Ukraine. That was his fatal mistake. When I'm saying he's won tactically, he's won for today, for tomorrow, for the next week. Because what happened for 3 years, he was looking for a way to exit this situation with saving face. And it was really hard to do. There was nothing to show. He had nothing to show for the war in Ukraine, except for hundreds of thousands of killed Russian men, razed Ukrainian cities, killed Ukrainians. That was the result of the war. And what I'm saying he's won is now he has something to show, and there is a way out for him. Okay, perhaps even leaving some of the Ukrainian territories. I'm not sure about that, but I think he could do that. Okay, it's just takes a different approach of propaganda to brainwash Russian minds. But he has something to show, and that's what I call a victory. But at the same time, strategically, in the long run, he's lost, and he's gonna be out of the office. Dead, alive, we don't know that, but this is it. His children are not going to run Russia. His people who are right next to him, his friends, most likely will not run Russia. Okay, everything that he has acquired personally, money, the assets, the companies, that's all going to be taken away from him. By who? That I don't know. But I am certain that he's going down. And I also agree that he does not need peace. He needs a situation between war and peace where he can justify the hardship that he'll be putting people into. Okay. And at the same time, there will be no threat of him losing militarily. For example, to freeze the front lines where they are right now and have minor activity. Okay. At the same time, saying, look, we have reached our goals, but now we have different goals. You see, they're destroying our economy. It's in a bad shape. I mean, you've seen what's going on with prices at the store. You've seen the interest. It's not us, it's them. Okay. And you have to, yes, we're all suffering. And I am also suffering in my heart. And I'm feeling for all Russians, but it's not me. It's not my decision. It's not my mistake. I've done everything I could and I have something to show you. This is it. I've done right for Russia. But now we have to, you know, tighten our waist belts, because this is not just peacetime anymore. It's war time or, special operation time or whatever. Yes, you have to work more. We're forced to make it so you work more, receive less, earn less, and so forth. There's perhaps ratios at the stores. I don't think there will be food ratios, but the food will be so expensive that Russians will just start saving on food. And this is the situation where he wants to be found, where it's not war, but not quite peace, somewhere in between. Okay. And Donald Trump has handed him this situation. I think unwillingly, not knowing, and Putin outplayed, outsmarted, and outslid him. But this is the fact. Putin has it in his hand.
And mobilization is an important tool as well, isn't it? Because as long as people in the cities think, look, if things get a lot worse, we're going to be mobilized. But actually, as long as we're not mobilized, we can put up with whatever hardships. So this is another psychological tool. But of course, if the war ends, there's no need for mobilization. And that psychological tool no longer has the kind of power it had before.
Where do I start? Okay. First of all, I think that those mobilized are not going to be allowed to go back home. Even if there's a ceasefire or peace agreement or there's no fighting anymore, they need to stay um, someplace outside of Russian cities, Russian towns, villages, and so forth. Um, Second, right now, there are events happening, and I'm going to be covering in my live streams in the upcoming week, where there are raids of fitness clubs, gyms, by law enforcement, the riot police, and mobilization officers, where they actually search the gyms for young Russians to mobilize, to conscript. Okay. There is a phenomenon in Russia called immunity from mobilization, because when the mobilization was announced 2.5 years ago, millions of Russians just started leaving Russia. I called it exodus. Okay. And I witnessed it myself. I was one of the people who left. And I saw that highly educated, smart, experienced Russians were leaving. And that was a disaster for the labor market. Russian companies were losing thousands, tens, millions of Russians. Okay. And so they came up with this trick called the immunity mobilization immunity. So with a job came a card, get out of jail card, so to speak. If you hold this job, you're immune. No one can touch you. March 21st, 2025, all the immunity expired. Not too many people know about that, and I'm amazed because this is major, and Russians are just not interested. I call to Russia and I speak and I mention this to people, and they're like, well, no, I didn't know. I have immunity, or I know this person who has immunity. Not any longer. Okay. And when the next mobilization hits, it's not going to be like the previous, where people were just running away, could cross the border, could leave the country, and so forth. It's going to be quick and stealthy because the laws are in place and the technical tools are in place. For example, when you are conscribed or mobilized, they don't have to come and get you. They just put your name into a database, and this database sends automatic information to different agencies, commercial banks, um, mm, driving departments of the police, border patrol people. You are denied leaving Russia immediately at the time when this event happens, when you are uh, placed under conscription or mobilization order. You have only 7 days. After 7 days, your driver's license expires. Your bank accounts, you cannot do any operations with them any longer. You cannot open or close companies, and I think you cannot sell or buy real estate. So they limit you in your rights a great deal, and they do it without you knowing. So Russians who will be mobilized this time, they're on for a big surprise. They won't be able to leave the country. They'll be 100% turned down by the border control people because they will know, okay? They won't be able to drive a car. They won't be able to receive salaries into their banks. And it's basically a big trap. And you know what? Something is telling me it's coming. It's coming. Another conscription campaign starts tomorrow, and it will last until July 15th, twice a year. But it's something regular. It has happened in Russia for, last 40 years, even more than that. So after The conscription campaign ends July 15th. I'm waiting for something major to hit Russia. Mark my words. Because they can't do both at the same time. They will be busy with mobilization, and then after it's done, this campaign, they will start something new.
And of course, we called it out. We've been talking about what is likely to happen and what may happen. But the fact is, Putin cannot stop war, at least if he wants to preserve his own regime, his own life. Konstantin, I place huge value on these conversations. I'm very grateful to you for making the time for them, especially today when you're clearly not feeling 100% and yet you've shared your insights with us. It is massively gratefully received, and I know it will be by the audience as well. Get well soon. Take some rest for today. Thank you.
Jonathan, thank you so very much for having me. It's been pleasure. I'm looking forward our next conversation.